I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Woohoo!
Yes. We are back in Duckberg. We are once again talking about DuckTales. It's been a while since we talked about DuckTales. DuckTales the movie was the last time we talked about DuckTales. And now we're talking about the reboot, the 2017 reboot. And when this was first announced, there was, at least in of what I read, there was a circle of caution because this was at a time where a lot of networks were doing reboots of their most popular shows. Like we were getting Teen Titans Go, a reboot of the Powerpuff Girls, Ben 10, and they were not all as lovingly embraced. So a reboot of DuckTales, like, oh, another one. On top of the already, oh, another Disney reboot.
Yeah, I remember hearing that they were going to, like, well, you know, they're going to redo DuckTales. And then I was like, woohoo! And then it was like, they're not bringing back the original voice cast. And then like,
Half of them are dead.
Well, yeah, but the ones that are still alive, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, well, you know, if you're not going to bring back the surviving voice cast, then why am I even here? But then we have to talk about that reveal video.
Yeah, when they announced that David Tennant will be taking over the role of Scrooge McDuck. If there was anyone to replace Alan Young, the great Alan Young, David Tennant would be all for it. I'm all for that.
Well, yeah, but it was also how they announced the cast in general. Because they dropped that theme song video.
And it was the cast singing it, yeah.
Yeah, it was that a cappella version of the theme song with the cast singing it.
It's a danger, watch behind you. There's a stranger out to find you. What to do, just grab onto some DuckTales. Woo!
And the fact that they released not long afterwards a short to kind of introduce each character, and Scrooge's one was involving a time machine.
Well, yeah.
It's like 46 seconds. It's on YouTube where, you know, I forget which nephew is messing around with a grandfather clock. It's not a clock, it's a time machine. Ah, David Tennant and a time machine. I see what you did, Disney.
Yeah, and it's like, it's David Tennant. He gets to use his natural accent because it's Scottish actor, Scottish character. I mean, that was the same thing with Alan Young too. You know, we talked about that in the original thing. You know, people were just used to seeing him from like Mr. Head. They were like, why is he putting on the Scottish accent? Well, it's like, no, he was. But so that at least is a little better known, you know. It's just like David Tennant just gets to go in and be a little bit more angry version of himself. Which is kind of funny, because if you've ever watched the series that they did over the pandemic called Staged, you can find a lot of clips of it on YouTube. But and you can find the series streaming now. I think it's on BritBox, but but it's him and Michael Sheen and then their wives, George Tennant, and then Michael's wife Anna. But they filmed it at their houses during lockdown. And they're playing exaggerated versions of themselves. And honestly, David just sounds like Scrooge McDuck half the time because he's just angry and yelling. And it's really just his Scrooge McDuck voice. Because it's just him being mad at Michael Sheen half the time. And screaming into a camera. And I'm like, this is probably just what the record sessions for DuckTales look like.
Then after the announcement, then they said that this was going to be based more off the original Uncle Scrooge comics versus the original series, which actually interested me more in general, like, because there are stories in those old comics that they never adapted for the original series. And the look was more of a stylized version of that. The intro, obviously, is them coming out of a comic book. At least that's how it looks like. Yeah.
The artwork for the theme is more comic book, and then the ending credits are also more, that kind of 4-color comic book feel. But we talked about how the old series has a Scrooge McDuck and nephew feel that is more antagonistic.
And it starts that way here.
It does start that way here, and we'll talk about that, kind of as we get into the plot of that first episode, especially. But that is very quickly dispensed with, because we've talked about it more as we've talked about the kind of new Disney brand, especially with the Pixar films and stuff, how it wants to have more holistic family dynamics over the long term, that you might start with a intergenerational family problem, but that you want to clear it up rather quickly and show a slightly more loving family environment.
And that is the entire plot of the first season. Is just there's family secrets, there's family drama. Yes, there's still adventures, but the main crux is you're not telling us everything. We need to know what's going on. Why are you the way you are?
But even within that, they really want to show the more loving and caring family dynamic,
especially with Donald. Because we're all used to angry Donald and antagonistic Donald with the nephews, but this is more caring father Donald.
And it also shows why Donald is a bit more angry, and it's less anger and more anxiety, I think, in this version of Donald. Donald, interestingly, being one of the few characters that retains their voice actor.
Yeah, Tony Anselmo from the original series, who's been voicing the character pretty much since the original series, and I think that's more of a Disney contractual thing. Like, if you're going to have, because there's an episode in the third season where we get Goofy, and it's Bill Farmer. So I think it's more of if you're going to use these classic characters, you're going to use their classic voices.
Yeah. I mean, he took over after Clarence Nash died, and he has been the voice of Donald ever since.
To this day.
Yeah, I mean, he is the official voice of Donald Duck. So, he is, he was the voice in the original DuckTales. He is the voice now. He's the voice in all the other cartoon appearances of Donald Duck, you know. So, but in this portrayal of Donald, when we see him in that first episode, I mean, you know, let's just kind of go ahead and talk about this opening in the episode, which is called Woo. You know. Yep,
Woo, and part 2 is Escape 2 from Atlantis. This did air as a 1 hour special originally, and is not a 1 hour special on Disney Plus. They split up the episodes. However, if you do want to see how it originally aired, they do have it in its original 1 hour format on the Disney Channel YouTube channel, of all things. It's still there, so go to YouTube and you can see the original aired version.
Yeah, but I mean, either or. I don't think they actually cut out anything. It's just that there will be a credits break.
Yeah.
In there. So when we start Woo, Donald and the 3 nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, are living on an old tugboat off the coast of Duckberg. Apparently the backstory of this is that this is the kind of leftover wreckage of the tugboat Donald used to be the captain of. What the boys don't know is that Donald used to adventure with Scrooge, and then once he'd left that, he was a tugboat captain, and then this is the tugboat he used to captain, and you know. But in the original continuity, he was actually like in the Navy, and that's kind of why the boys were with Scrooge so much, is because Donald was, you know, in the Navy.
And there was a few episodes that actually show him in the Navy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like he was actually in the military. But in this one, he everything comes back to being an adventurer with Scrooge. I mean, that they were a family of adventurers.
I just love that scene of Dewey trying to hotwire the boat.
Yeah, the boys were gonna take the boat and go off
joyride.
Go off to St. Canard, weren't they? I think that's where they were gonna go off to.
Cape Suzette,
Cape Suzette, yeah.
Which kind of segues into another thing I wanted to talk about: the Disney Afternoon connected universe that this show just absorbs.
Yeah, the Disney Afternoon cinematic universe they're trying to set up, which I kind of love. Yeah.
Like, almost every Disney Afternoon cartoon gets referenced. You get references to Tailspin. Characters from Tailspin show up in season. Oh, yeah. We get Don Carnage as one of the main villains of the series, and we get Kit in season 3. Spoonerville gets a mention in the first episode, which is Goof Troop. Gummy Berry Juice is a plot point in one episode, so there's your gummy bears. We see the birth of the Rescue Rangers in one episode. Darkwing Duck obviously plays a part in here. Bonkers is in... Yeah,
Bonkers gets a cameo on screen.
As a cop, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's at the very end of the series, but Gargoyles gets a shout out in this series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and lay this out so that when I say something wrong and people come at me, you'll know why. I have not completely finished this series. I have not seen all the episodes. So when I inevitably say something wrong, that's why. I haven't been able to finish the entirety of the last season.
I've seen up to the end of season 2 and bits and pieces of season 3, so your mileage may vary.
Yeah, okay. So when we say something that is not quite with the continuity, we have done our research, but you know, we might not be on all the minutia. Forgive us. But the thing about it though is that when that gargoyles thing hit, all of my like gargoyled freak friends were like, "Oh my god!"
With Keith David.
Yeah, and it's like, oh.
The fact that they took a character, and yeah, we're kind of jumping to the end of the episodes here, but you take a one-off character like Manny the Headless Man Horse, who could have easily been a one-off character, and you give him a recurring role in the series, and that's the payoff.
And Manny the Headless Man Horse is literally mentioned in Woo, which we'll get to here in just a second. But we start off with them on the boat, and Donald's like, hey, we need money, because this show is nothing if not intensely capitalist. Scrooge.
So he needs a job, yeah.
Donald needs to make some of that money, because Scrooge ain't helping out family here at the beginning of the series.
Well, I mean, there's a reason.
There's a reason, at least in this series, which is better than the previous series.
Like there was a severe falling out between the two, and we don't. If you're watching these episodes for the first time, you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But by the end, you know why.
Yeah, but to the point that the nephews do not even know that they're related to Scrooge.
Yeah.
And they have sent the babysitter to a different address, so she can't make it on time because they want to take the boat and, skip off. But Donald will not let that happen because he's overprotective. Again, you find out in the series why he's overprotective. But he decides, last resort, he's going to leave the nephews with Scrooge, and this is how they find out that Scrooge, the richest duck in the world, is actually Uncle Scrooge. This
great
is
uncle, yeah. Yeah,
this is the first time that Donald and Scrooge have seen each other in 10 years. Mrs. Beakley is the one that agrees to them watching the boys, and that's how the boys end up inside the mansion, supposedly just for a couple hours.
While he goes in his job interview, yeah.
While Donald goes on this job interview. But the nephews are so annoying to Scrooge.
They call him a has-been.
Yeah, they call him a has-been because he used to be an adventurer, they say. He used to be a big deal, but now he's just
an old man in a house.
An old man who sits in a
empty
slowly decaying house. I like Scrooge trying to figure out what children like.
Your kids like marbles? Yeah.
Your children still like marbles. They lock them in the room, and I like that Mrs. Beakley says that the marbles are a gift from Uncle Scrooge. They will return them when they leave, and Uncle Scrooge has counted them, which is very much like the old Uncle Scrooge.
I guarantee he knows where everything in that house is, and it's like in Misery, he'll know if the slightest thing has been moved.
Yeah. The cool thing is, though, is I love the one nephew, and I'm going to say, even though they do have distinct personalities in this series, which they did not, I mean, we talked about that when we talked about the original series. They were interchangeable in the original series. In this one, they have distinct personalities, and I still can't keep them apart, and that is on me.
Dewey wears blue, Louie wears green, Huey wears red.
I finally have that part down, but as far as when I am not staring at the screen trying to remember which one did the thing, while I am watching the screen, I can keep them apart, but when I walk away and you're like, which one of them
did the thing
in the episode, I can't I can't do it when I'm not staring directly at them.
The point is they use the marbles as like a slapjack or something, and they break the lock and they get escape.
Yeah, but I love this one. The humor is so much better.
Yeah.
That is the main upgrade of this show, is that all of the jokes just hit so hard.
And I think it has a lot to do with what the original series was. The original series was Monday through Friday and Saturday morning, and they had to write for all of that. So not every episode is going to be a winner. When you're doing this show, which is one episode a week, you can actually focus on the writing. And the fact that this is connected storytelling and not individual episodes that don't necessarily connect.
But also, they're writing for a slightly different audience, which is, yes, they're still writing for kids, but also they understand that adults are going to be watching, and also they understand kids better. We've talked about it before that kids shows when we were growing up were just...
Kids are dumb, talking down to kids.
Yeah, kids are dumb, put something colorful on it, have a good guy punch a bad guy, and have the good guy win, and then put a moral at the end that's like, remember kids, drink milk and stay in school.
But now we're in the era of Adventure Time. We're in the era of Steven Universe.
Yeah,
We're in
the era of we understand that kids understand things. Like, kids have feelings. Kids can keep hold of a plot for more than 5 seconds in their brain. And they understand that kids will be able to go back and watch these again if they don't understand something. There's repeat value. When we were kids, it was like, oh, you can't have a connected storyline. Like, maybe you can have a two-parter. Mm-hmm. Or a special episode or a crossover. But like you said, it was every day of the week, and you knew that kids were going to miss certain episodes. Maybe there's a repeat, but you can't expect them to watch it in order. You can't expect this to be appointment television,
This is the Disney afternoon era where we're doing homework when this show is on. For the most part.
Or, maybe I can watch it on Monday afternoon, but Tuesday afternoon I've got band practice, or, Wednesday afternoon I've got to go to, soccer, or, it's like some afternoons you can, some afternoons you can't. Mm-hmm. But in this one, it's like, well, I can set the DVR, or I can catch it online later, or I can watch it on streaming, or, kids are just used to having everything all the time now. Until, somebody new takes over the company and wipes it out. But, that's the idea of it. Kids will be able to keep up. And so they're doing it for a bit of a different audience. They're writing jokes that are just for adults. There are some of these jokes that you watch it and you're like, okay, that one was just for the adults. And not in like a dirty way, but in like there's too many layers of understanding to get that joke.
There's enough of the joke that the kids can find it funny, but if you dig deep into the wordplay of the joke, that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, or it's just, that's a reference you'll only get when you're older, or, it's one that is something that with life experience, it becomes a totally different color of joke, And
sometimes it's just a reference to the original series.
Sometimes it's a reference to the original series, or sometimes it's something that references like a commercial that you understood if you grew up in the 80s in America or something, Yeah. And you're like, okay, no kid born in the 2000s is going to get that. But But the writers are millennials, and that's funny to them.
And I mean, let's kind of go to what probably is the biggest upgrade in this entire series, Webby. This new Webby, this revitalized, this completely different. It doesn't look like the original Webby, doesn't talk like the original Webby. If this character wasn't named Webby and her grandmother was Mrs. Beakley, you wouldn't know that this was Webby.
I am so in love with this Webby. This is the best thing. I mean, other than the fact that, like, David Tennant is now Scrooge McDuck, this is the single greatest thing about this series.
Kate Micucci, who has, over the last almost decade, has really gotten into and become a really great voice actor. She only has about 3 voices, but she makes it work. Like, the voice she uses for Webby is the same voice she uses for Velma on Scooby-Doo, but somehow her acting can make these two characters sound completely different.
I mean, honestly, I thought that this was just the voice she used for Kate Micucci, but okay. Like, immediately you hear it and you go like, oh, that's just her. But it's like Kristen Schaal, you know.
Yeah.
You hear it and you go like, okay. But also, why do you need more than that? Why are you asking for more than that? You're okay with that. We knew her because we've been fan of Garfunkel and Oates for
years.
Well, for like ever since they first showed up.
Yeah.
But it's been so great to see her career just take off like that. But she is perfectly cast in this, and also this character is the greatest thing ever. I wish I had this version of Webby when I was a kid.
I mean, yeah, we've talked when we talked about DuckTales the movie. We talked about classic Webby, how she's just the girl.
Yeah, and the girl being the personality type, which is there is no personality.
She is just girl.
Yeah.
She has her dolly. She is scared. She is let the boy save me. And the fact that our first instance of Webby is she has the doll like nailed to her little board.
Yeah, there is an arrow through it on the board next to her complex conspiracy theory red string push
McDuck family tree.
McDuck family tree that she's got hidden behind a map on the wall. Yeah. Oh, I love this character so much.
And again, I don't want to spoil it, but Webby's payoff by the end of this series.
Which I just found out about doing research for this episode because I haven't made it to those episodes yet.
Webby's payoff. Mwah!
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it explains why I love her so much. Finding that out about her origin story, I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
She is just immediately like, she has been kept inside this mansion for her entire life, and all she wants to do is leave the mansion and just eat a hamburger.
She wants to live.
Yeah, which is so I can relate to that so much, but she has spent her entire life just like,
she wants
training
to be where
herself in all these things so that if Scrooge ever goes out adventuring again, she can be worthy of going along.
Being her partner. Being Scrooge's partner. She just wants to be where the people are. She wants to see the great wide somewhere.
Yeah. She wants to be out there, walking by the sun. And it's just, I mean, this is a girl who needs an I Want song the second we meet her, and I love it so much. Her and her little stabbed pink dolly.
And the fact that it's Kate Micucci, she could have made it work.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine Kate Micucci doing like a weird Disney Princess I Want song as Webby? I
With the
want that
ukulele.
light.
I want Webby with the ukulele doing that song.
Yes, Webby with the ukulele with her I Want song. Oh, why is that not a thing? And it needs to be written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. We will get there.
Let's pause
But
for a second and talk about. We've mentioned that now the boys have different, unique personalities. They also now have unique, distinct voices.
oh
They are
yeah,
no lo-
it's
they are
not
no
just
longer voiced by the same person.
yeah, it's not just one guy doing all the voices, and
Woman,
they've got
Brucey Taylor
amazing
was the original
actors. Yeah,
voice. Yeah. So we got Danny Pudi as Huey. I mean, Community. I don't
yeah.
need to say much more about that. Ben Schwartz as Dewey. He's done. He's had
Parks
a great.
and Rec. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, he's also has a couple of cartoons under his belt. Randy Cunningham for Disney, Leonardo in Rise of the Ninja Turtles, and he is the current voice of Sonic the Hedgehog for the movies.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he has a pretty good voice acting career going for him. And of course, Bobby Moynihan as Louie. He's Bobby Moynihan. I don't need to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, SNL alone, but also,
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the voice acting going on for him as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the We Bare Bears, and then of course he was in Monsters University, so more Disney, and he's got Mr. Mayor, and then now he's doing Lofi, which is his latest thing that he's doing. But and any of those is just a big feather in your cap, but all of them together, they've got their own
a lot of great
distinct-
comedic actors in this series.
Yeah, I mean, they really did pull together an excellent cast, but I like all the distinction that they give. Huey is the one with the Junior Woodchuck guidebook.
He's the one that's most like classic nephews.
Yeah, he's very much like, we have to follow the rules and we have to do. Louis really wants to be like
Scrooge.
Yeah, he really wants to be like Scrooge. He's very money focused. He very much he wants to be the startup guy. And Dewey is, I love his late night show that he keeps trying to start.
He just live streaming, he wants to be a celebrity.
Yeah,
he wants to be a YouTube star.
Yeah, he kind of wants to be like the Twitch guy, and it's so adorable kind of that they have their little niches that they go for.
And the four of those kids together are way better than the original four in the original series.
Yeah, and then Webby is the kind of the muscle, which I like. She is very much the
she studied all of Scrooge's adventures. She's the most knowledgeable of the four kids in just what the hell they're doing.
And she's kind of Lara Croft.
Kinda.
Yeah, I mean,
again, her family.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it runs it. I mean, even if you don't count the everything else, her grandmother was a secret agent.
Yeah, I mean, they make Mrs. Beakley a secret agent in this one.
I mean, to be fair, Alfred Pennyworth was a secret agent before he became Batman's butler.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this one, they really go into that.
The flashback episodes where we see her as a young woman having adventures with Scrooge.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but it is, she's a shush agent,
Yeah. And that gets brought back. Shush from DuckTales and Darkwing and Fowl.
Yeah. But when the boys and Webby go out on their adventures, Webby she's a bit scatterbrained because she has more book knowledge than real world knowledge. But
she also is the one with the least amount of social. She's been locked in the house her whole life, so she has no social skills.
Yeah, I mean, the boys are like her first friends she's ever met. Like
they have to teach her how to lie.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's never met anybody her own age.
It's always been Scrooge and Mrs. Beakley.
Yeah. And Launchpad.
And yeah, Launchpad.
But she has, she's very. She tends to ramble and info dump a lot. And she is really, really good at spy stuff. Like, she's learned a lot from her grandmother, it's kind of obvious, and from books, and from sneaking around the mansion.
I mean, the first thing she does with them is go into what we find out is Scrooge's garage with all of his trinkets.
His garage.
Stuff. It's garage, yes.
Which is maybe my favorite joke in the entire thing, which is where Scrooge is like,
he found your treasure room.
This isn't my treasure room. It's my garage. And they're like, but it can't be, like. And then one of the nephews is like, "Do you mean garage?" Which is like, I'm like, that's what he's worried about. Everybody else is just really upset it's not a treasure room, and that the one nephew is worried about his pronunciation of the word, which I adore. But yeah, but Webby has learned everything about all of the artifacts that Scrooge has brought back. So she knows things like you can't hit the gong 3 times, and this is exactly, this is
the pirate ghost, the headless man horse,
and
like I said, the headless man horse could have just been a one-off gag in this episode, but it becomes a recurring character. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's there for the Gizmo Duck episode later, and and carries all the way through the
end of the series.
The end of the series, yeah.
I mean, this whole thing with in the treasure room / garage / garage, it's just like, as the kids say, they just wanted to hang out with who they believe to be the coolest person in the world, the once great adventurer, the richest duck that ever lived, who is now their uncle, and he just didn't want anything to do with them. Of course, we hear the kids overhear Scrooge saying, family is a liability or whatever. And again, we find out why he feels that way. But for these kids who don't know the story yet, it's kind of like, oh, he doesn't, he's just a crotchety old man, They
have this idea of Scrooge is the adventurer, and now he's just a businessman who sits alone at a table and yells at them. In yelling at them, Scrooge ends up hitting this gong that they've already accidentally hit twice, and
the gold hunting dragon.
Yeah, the gold hunting dragon comes to life, and they're like, oh, why is that a problem? It's like, well, duh, Scrooge has the most gold, it's going to the money bin. And Scrooge ends up grabbing the dragon's tail, and the
yeah, this whole interaction with the dragon and the whole thing that happened after it rekindles his love of adventure.
Yeah, but my favorite part is that, they're like, how are we gonna get the dragon? It's not like we can fly after it. And then Launchpad just pops up and he's like, I'm a pilot. And they get on the plane and they're like, don't worry, Uncle Scrooge, we're coming to get you. And I love Scrooge's thing of like, when is Launchpad a pilot?
And he's been telling you this the entire episode, that he's a pilot.
Yeah.
Because, it leads into the second episode, but, Scrooge wants a pilot to fly him to because he wants to look for Atlantis. He needs a pilot. And, Launch was saying, I'm a pilot. And just Scrooge is just not listening to him. But yeah, the payoff, when is Launchpad been a pilot?
Yeah. But, the funny thing is, though, is that the boys and Webby work really well together, as they grab
the Medusa Gauntlet. Yeah, they use the Medusa Gauntlet to re-petrify the dragon.
Yeah, but the thing is that I love the payoff of all of these wacky stories that they've, I hear that Scrooge does this. I hear that Scrooge does that. I hear that he just swims in money instead of a pool. And then we get the payoff to that as he's falling from the plane. And then he realizes, oh, I can just land in the money bin and go for a swim. And they're like, we knew it. He does swim in money. And we get that lovely shot that was always in the opening credits of the first thing.
Him diving in the money and spitting the coins out.
Spitting the coins out. And,
There is a line here that you think is a throwaway line, but it becomes so much more by the time we get to the end of the series. Launchpad. Seeing the bonding moment between the nephews, Webby and Scrooge, he says, he says, family is the greatest adventure of all. And that is really the theme of the entire series.
Yeah, because that's what the show is about. The first series was just about adventure. That's all it was. It was a very kind of shallow series, comparatively. This series is a series about family that happens to have some adventure in it. And we get the difference in what's going to be the difference about this Scrooge versus the Scrooge in the original series right at the end of this first half hour, when he says, oh, boys, because they're assuming he's going to be mad at them for, breaking into his stuff and, breaking his money bin. And he says, oh, you kids are trouble, and I have missed trouble.
And he says, I'm going to teach you how to get into trouble properly.
Yeah, and I'm going to take you on a field trip, which is going to lead into the next episode.
Where they go to Atlantis,
But he goes and he hugs them, he pats Webby on the head, he's, and he's immediately a different person. He's forgotten, and as we find out later why he's been kind of locked away. But he used to be fun-loving and very into family, and then they suffered a tragedy, and now, he's been affected by that tragedy.
For 10 years, yeah.
For 10 years, but now he's remembered, like, okay, there's hope, there's another generation. Maybe I can go back to being who I was. I like that kind of lesson, and I like that we learn, why he was that way. I like this version of Scrooge, and I like that we see more of him in the second episode, but we do have the little stinger at the end of the first half hour, which is that Donald's job interview was actually for Flintheart Glomgold, which is our first major villain.
Oh, Flinty. Flinty. Oh, the story of Flintheart Glomgold in this entire series. Oh, miles ahead of what the original show was.
I mean, the fact that they made him South African.
The fact that they had the character literally be the anti-Scrooge. Like, those two have so much similar life events in their respective childhoods and get the complete different lessons from it that leads them down their respective paths. Which is a lot of the villains in the series. There's another villain, and we'll talk about him later, that also has a similar path to another, like another mirror to another character. Yeah. How, in going by, again, taken from the original comic, Scrooge's backstory of being a shoeshine boy in Scotland, getting paid with an American dime, and starting his fortune that way. Flintheart, also a shoeshine boy, also paid with an American dime, and decides, what the hell is this? What are you giving me this for? What is this garbage? Rather than Scrooge saying, this is the start of a great adventure for me. And with Flintheart is, hey, you're undersold me. Give me some more money. I'm gonna make more money just to spite you. Both of them, the same life, the same experiences, different lessons.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's also interesting of like also where they came from, Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that, like one was born in Scotland and one was born in South Africa and one was born, I mean, it's like
South African cosplaying as a Scotsman.
But it's fascinating how they brought in kind of more real world stuff,
Yeah.
But it sets it up with, Glomgold hires Donald and says Donald thinks he's there to be an accountant, and he's like, no, I need you to be a sailor. What do you know about Atlantis? And then in the start of the second episode, we see the kind of welcome to Glomgold Industries new employee kind of video. And Glomgold has it set up where he's like, take an idea and just put your stamp on it.
That's how you make money.
Like. That's how you make money.
Which, again, it's the different lessons. With Scrooge, it's like, take your ideas and make them work, versus Glomgold, take someone else's idea and take the credit.
But the interesting thing is that really Scrooge's thing? Because we see later in the Buddy episode that we're going to talk about in just a second that Scrooge is kind of just buying other people's ideas too.
He's buying the ideas. Glomgold is straight up stealing them.
I mean, that's just stealing with extra steps.
Yeah.
It's like, so, and it turns out that the people he was buying from were just stealing from his people who were stealing from, I mean, it's like, that's capitalism.
Yeah.
But
and I just love in this episode, Donald, he's like, hold on a minute, I gotta check in on my boys, and the constant, like, Scrooge is trying to lie to Donald, saying, "How the boys are fine. We're at the mansion. We're just chilling." All while the kids are just, woohoo! We're on an adventure.
And then they're trying to get Webby to lie, and she's all like, "Oh yeah, we're over here hanging out with Uncle whoever. He only speaks Swedish." And they're like, "You can never back that up." And Launchpad gets hit on the head and starts speaking Swedish. Like,
yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that they're all ending up at Atlantis, and the Atlantis thing is such a tertiary part of this story.
Yeah. It could have been any ancient city. But the point is, it's the kid's first adventure with Scrooge, and it's Donald learning to let go because he's been the overprotective parent for the last 10 years. Our first view of him and the nephews is he's making them put on these very puffy, very large life preservers so
in case they fall overboard in the 5 minutes it takes the babysitter to get there.
Yeah.
Which is funny because also they're ducks. Yeah, I love that bit. It's like, you're ducks.
Don't you swim? Don't you fly?
Yeah. But the thing is that most of it is Donald trying to keep the nephews safe, like him trying to use the shield to block the fire, and Dewey is like dancing through the
booby trapped, yeah,
the laser, but he's hitting every single one because he doesn't understand that the point is to not break the laser light. So he's just dancing through them and triggering every trap, And then Scrooge just jumps up and like zip lines down something else using his cane. And Dewey's like, but that's the easy way. And he's like, yes, why wouldn't you take the easy way? That's the point of the easy way. They're there to find
the treasure of Atlantis.
This jewel, which ends up being like a thing that can provide just like infinite
clean energy,
power, clean energy.
It's the jewel that's been powering the city of Atlantis for so long.
Yeah.
We're not going to see, Milo and Kia in this Atlantis.
Yeah, but
I love the joke that they built Atlantis, but they never built the support structure, so it fell into the sea upside down.
Yeah, which makes most of the traps not work anymore because it's like, walking under razor blades doesn't really do anything, But the thing is that I like that Scrooge ends up tricking Glomgold into taking a cursed jewel while Scrooge gets the real one.
But also we find out that the only reason Flintheart hired Donald was because he found out that he was Scrooge's nephew.
Yeah. But this is the first time we hear about the Spear of Selene.
Yeah, the Spear of Selene, which again, that is the plot for the entire first season, and part of the second. This whole Spear of Selene, Della Duck storyline takes up the first season and a half.
Yeah, but the thing is that this episode, before we kind of get to that, the first episode has one of my favorite things that Scrooge does, which is to give his enemies compliments, which are really humble brags about Scrooge. Like when he says that, oh, Glomgold, you're the poorer version of me.
The dollar store version of him.
Well, yeah, he was like you're the lesser, poorer version of me, but I am insanely wealthy, so that still makes you incredibly rich. Which I just love is like not really a dig at Glomgold so much as just a brag about Scrooge.
But he's right. Even the dollar store version of Scrooge McDuck would still be insanely wealthy.
Well, yeah, I mean it's Scrooge McDuck's wealth is meant to be in the comics. And I think we mentioned this in the previous DuckTales episode. Like, it's meant to be an unattainable amount of wealth in the real world. So, even if Glomgold is supposed to be the second richest in comparison to Scrooge, he'd still be like a trillionaire or something, it's like, it's still a level of wealth that no real life person has achieved on the planet. But it's just really funny that that's the way Scrooge is like, oh, you're pathetic, but I'm so great that makes you just one of the greatest people on the planet.
But yeah, I mean, it's that to go back to Donald, it's like, this is the spirit of Celine all over again. Because he sees Scrooge is putting kids in danger. What a shock. That's what he always does.
Especially putting family members in danger. That's Scrooge's MO as far as Donald is concerned.
And we find out why. Again, we'll get into it. But, it was not just a traumatic thing for Scrooge, but it was traumatic for Donald as well. Probably more so for Donald.
Donald got left holding the eggs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it was. But, we finally get that thing of,
we see the painting of Scrooge and Donald fighting the pirate ghost that we saw earlier, the first time. I think it's Dewey. Yeah, Dewey pulls back the painting and sees his mother, Della. This is the first time we've ever seen Della animated. I believe Della originally is from the comics, but we never really did anything with her, and they never did anything with her in the comics. And boy, did they do a lot with her in the show.
Yeah, and she ends up being voiced by Paget Brewster, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised that she ends up in the show, because when I first saw this, I was like, oh, that's just going to be like
a mysterious, we're never actually going to see Della.
The mysterious figure. Yeah. She's just always going to be like, they're going to talk about their dead mom for the whole series. And then it's like, oh, no, they're not.
She's alive. There's a mom. She's very much alive. We don't know much about their dad, but that's not really what the show is about. We know,
Yeah. But the kind of mystery of, Della and what happened and why Donald is so mad at Scrooge and so, I mean, that's, the first season and a half, like you said.
And the fact that the first episode also introduces us to another character that becomes so important by the time we get to the third season, Bradford Buzzard, the CFO of McDuck Enterprises. In the first episode, he's just a board member. We just see him as a nameless board member saying, hey, we're spending too much. We need to cut back. Who knew that this one insignificant character would become so big by the time the series ends?
Yeah.
The fact, I mean, do you want me to go into it, or do you want to wait till we get to
that point? We'll get
into it, yeah. When we get there, we'll get to it. But the fact that here's this character who, if you only, if you know nothing else about the series and you're watching that first episode, oh, he's just a random board member. He's not important. We'll never see him again. And then you see him again and again. And he gets this whole arc. It's, again, that, Manny, Della, the way they wrote all of that.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder if they just kind of sat down and wrote a show Bible and was like, if we get to do all the seasons we want, this is where we're going. 'Cause it's intricate and it works together. It
makes me wonder if they had plans for like a season 4 and season 5, if they had gotten the go-ahead?
I have no idea, but it does seem to wrap up so well.
Yeah.
But, kind of moving along with this whole thing. The next one that we kind of wanted to talk about was Beware the Buddy System.
Season 1, episode 15. And I had forgotten this technically fits into other episodes we're going to be talking about, because this is our first real look at Darkwing Duck in the DuckTales universe. And a lot of the original voice actors came back for this. At least for this particular episode.
Yeah.
Because we get, obviously, Jim Cummings as Darkwing Duck again. We're getting Corey Burton back as the Liquidator. Michael Bell back as Quackerjack. We do get a new Megavolt, Keith Ferguson, but that's because Dan Castellaneta was the original Megavolt, and he's getting that Simpsons money now, and I don't think they could have afforded him for a one-off.
I mean, it's all the same thing.
You already have him in the studio.
Just the mouse owns all. Just
Yeah.
But the of course, the reason we wanted to talk about this episode in particular is this is our introduction to the updated Fenton Crackshell Cabrera.
Yeah, Latino.
Yeah, I get a Cuban flavor Fenton in this one. But who absolutely was knocked out of the park by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
We've talked about Lin-Manuel as a songwriter, but I really wanted to talk about him as an actor. And this is probably, unless we start doing Hamilton, this is probably the only chance we're going to get.
I mean, we could, as long as it's Disney Plus. So
that's true.
Let us know if you want us to talk about Hamilton, I guess. But yeah. The thing about it is that I think I heard about his casting via another singing of a DuckTales thing, which was just Lynn humming the moon theme. Which was kind of awesome. But which bravo to this series for making the moon theme canon.
Yeah, and a plot point.
And a plot point. So yeah, I mean, moon theme is awesome. So
pretty much everything about that game became canon, even the pogo stick. Like, there's an episode where Gyro invents a new walking stick for Scrooge, and it's a pogo stick. So that's canon now.
That's incredible. But we get that Fenton is the
intern.
The intern at, McDuck Labs or whatever for Gyro.
Gyro is another character that got completely redone for this. His personality is completely redone. In the original series, he was more of a scatterbrain scientist. This time, he's more of an antisocial inventor. Like, he doesn't care about anybody else has to say or do. It's all about the science.
He is a bit of an evil scientist, but it's an accidental evil scientist because all of his inventions keep turning evil.
This is technically a part 2 to an earlier episode where he invents the light bulb, his little bulb buddy from the original series, that ends up turning evil. And at the end of that episode, he writes down Project Blatherskite. And this is the payoff for that.
Yeah. But this has one of the more interesting jokes, which is that they're going to a reveal of a new self-driving car.
Another recurring character, Mark Beeks.
Yeah, which was
of the new characters, this is like the most of the. This is definitely based off someone in real life.
Well, because his name wasn't originally going to be Mark Beeks. He was originally going to be Mark Zuckerberg. That was the original name of the character, and then they changed it because they did not want to get sued.
He is every modern billionaire rolled into one. He is Zuckerberg. He is Musk. He is Mark Cuban. Every young-ish billionaire who wants to be a celebrity, he's all of them rolled into one. Because he's always on his phone, he's streaming, he's taking selfies. He's in the invention business not for the thrill of science, but how can I become famous from this?
Yeah, and he's also just super annoying.
Like the billionaires he's based off of.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is that he is talking up his self-driving car, or it's a robotic driver. The car itself is not robotic, but his buddy is a robotic driver. And
so it isn't so much as a self-driving car as despite what they're saying.
Yeah, it's a robotic chauffeur.
Yeah.
And Launchpad, who has just in this episode gotten his driving license,
despite being Scrooge's limo driver for years.
Yeah.
But he's got a pilot's license, so it's the same thing apparently.
Yeah. Is put up in a contest against Buddy.
It reminds me. I don't know. I don't know if you've. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it reminds me of the Paul Bunyan ending, where it's Paul Bunyan versus the steam train.
Yeah. And Scrooge says he wants to see how good this thing is before he buys a fleet of them. And Launchpad is very worried that Scrooge is going to replace him. And
with good reason. I mean, if you have a driver that never crashes, and that's Launchpad's thing, is he crashes.
Yeah. But Dewey is along for the ride, and that's it for the nephews or Webby.
Yeah.
None of the kids are in this except for Dewey.
We get Manny back.
We get Manny back, who is also an intern in the lab for some reason.
Equal opportunity employer, that Gyro.
Yeah. But Fenton is along to help monitor this, and also because he and Launchpad and Dewey kind of quickly become friends.
Yeah.
But we get the first little bit. The reason that Darkwing kind of comes into this is because this is when we find out what Darkwing is in this universe, which is just a live-action TV show that Launchpad is obsessed with.
The Batman 66 of this universe.
Yeah, kinda. And they, he's making Dewey watch it. He has a little Darkwing bobblehead that sits on the dashboard of the car. And it says, "Let's get dangerous."
I want that.
Yeah, it's really cool. But the thing about it is that Fenton discovers
B.U.D.Y is based off Gyro's technology.
Yeah.
Because Fenton decided to put the plans on the internet saying, "Hey, can anyone on Reddit know robotics can tell me how robots can't be evil?"
Yeah, the problem was that the bulb tech kept turning evil, and Fenton was trying to crowdsource a solution to make it not evil. He was trying to help.
And Mark Beeks had just probably using some sort of Reddit burner account, downloaded the blueprints and based his B.U.D.Y off those specs.
But they were just a cosmetic thing. I mean, it's, Beeks is not an inventor. He's the guy who steals things. I mean, he's a CEO. He's not an inventor. He's Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And so he just took the design and basically put a
new chassis,
a new head on it. And
he even says, "I made it not lame. I made it look not lame. I didn't change any of the specs."
Yeah. So it takes Gyro and Scrooge and Dewey hostage, and
only after Beeks insults it. Like, it's just a robot. It's not like it's an actual living being.
Yeah. Launchpad has lost the race by this point, although he put in a good show because he crashed
he's trying to not crash. I mean, he has all of these notes on how to be a safe driver.
I think we went through that in the original show at one point, that they told Launchpad to not crash, and he kept crashing into things, and then at one point they told him try to crash, and he was the safest driver in the world or something.
Yeah.
I think they did that joke once in the original series. But anyway, he immediately crashes the limo, and then he gets on a scooter and crashes that, and then he gets on a bike and crashes that, and then he gets on roller skates and crashes those, and yeah. So the B.U.D.Y ends up winning the race technically, and Launchpad goes off to be upset when they find out that Fenton posted the plans on Reddit or whatever. Fenton gets fired, and he goes off to be upset with Launchpad. And we get Fenton's entire kind of reason in this, which is that he gets so many ideas, and he just wants to make the world better, but he doesn't really know how to focus them and harness them. It's just like a shotgun spread of ideas. And they're not always really that great.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, infrared toothbrush, that's an idea I just had, or something like that,
Yeah.
And so they're ideas, but they're not necessarily supremely useful or, whatever.
I do like the joke is that Fenton's office is the bathroom. It says this is where Gyro says all my ideas belong. Oh, I just understood why he said that.
Yeah. But he's he
means well.
He's a really trusting and nice guy, and he's also incredibly smart.
Smarter than the original Fenton.
Oh yeah, the
original Fenton was just an accountant.
Yeah. This Fenton actually knows something about science and robotics, and but the thing about this is that he goes into it, and once he realizes that the others have been taken hostage because while these two are sulking, the robot has been driving around the course, taking them hostage, and eventually Dewey kind of, rides by and is like, help, But, Fenton is able to call back to the lab, and, with the help of, the headless Manny, he is able to activate the Gizmo Duck suit.
Because this has been Gyro's point, was that the only way for a robot not to become evil is for a person to become a robot. He was going to now again, going back to that previous episode that we skipped over, Gyro wanted himself to become the robot. Gyro is a robot kind of deal.
But Gyro is kind of a little bit evil, though. I mean, not evil, but he's kind of a douche.
I mean, it's all about, he doesn't care about the safety of others or others in general. He just cares about the science.
Yeah. Meanwhile, though, Fenton is like a really nice guy.
He wants to help people.
Yeah.
He wants to make the world a better place. So he is the best person to be Gizmo Duck.
Yeah, it's that Captain America Super Soldier Serum thing, you know.
Yeah.
He is the worthy one. So
and I do like, after he saves the day, Gyro kind of looks at him and saying, "Well, I want the armor to be idiot proof, and you're the idiot to wear it." Kind of giving him that little backhanded compliment.
Yeah. But, you know, we get a lot of, you know, cute little gags about, like, the gluteal rocket,
pectoral parachute.
Yeah,
kind of wondering what Gyro was on when he invented all of this stuff.
Yeah. The gluteal grappling hook, that's what it was. But it's a cute little slapstick bit, because this is the first time that Fenton has been inside the suit, so he doesn't really know how to work it. But it's adorable, and it's a cute little way to introduce the character. And
Lin-Manuel plays it so well.
Yeah,
it's like you believe that he is this star-eyed, wide-eyed, innocent little being who just wants to do right.
I mean, have you ever seen Lin-Manuel Miranda? I'm not really sure that was acting. He just kind of looks at everything as if he's experiencing it for the first time. It's like, a cupcake? Wow! It's like, I don't know. He just has that vibe about him, which is just so adorable. It's such a great portrayal of the kind of character you want Fenton to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want to believe that this guy had something good happen to him. I like that we get this thing of like, oh, you were always a robot, and he's like, no. You guys are kind of
I'm not a robot. I'm just wearing a suit.
Not a robot. But then of course we have the thing of Mark Beeks now wants Gizmo Duck, and
which does lead into a later episode where
set up for future episodes. But now that we've introduced the idea of Darkwing Duck, we get to move on to Duck Knight Returns.
The Duck Knight Returns. We are fast forwarding to season 2, episode 16, The Duck Knight Returns. And the plot of this one is a Darkwing Duck movie is getting filmed. And original star of Darkwing Duck, Jim Starling, played by Jim Cummings, is kind of upset about this. Mostly because he is not starring in the reboot. Instead, who we do get is a young up-and-coming actor named Drake Mallard. Yep.
Yeah, we don't get that reveal until the end of the episode, but it is Drake Mallard.
So instead of being potential shush agent or whatever Drake Mallett did in the original show. I don't think we ever found that out. He's an up-and-coming actor. And this was supposed to be his big break because he is like the biggest Darkwing Duck fan in the world.
Except for maybe Launchpad.
Yeah. Drake is played by Chris Diamantopoulos, who we last talked about because he is the voice of Mickey Mouse.
He's just also like a sound-alike guy.
Yeah.
He does a lot of celebrity sound-alike.
And he is kind of trying to sound like a young Jim Cummings in here. But it's distinct enough that you can tell the difference between the two.
Yeah, and it's a thing of, I think if they ever did, there's been talks of rebooting a full Darkwing series.
I'm going to throw the note in here. We are recording this episode before Disney Plus Day and before the D23 Expo. So if any Darkwing Duck news gets announced at that, we're not going to know.
Yeah. But if there have been for years, let's just say that, and with this series,
this series really drove up the talk because, like, after these episodes aired, they announced that a Darkwing Duck reboot was going to be in the works for Disney Plus, but not with the creative team behind the series, which got a lot of people upset.
But Jim Cummings has said for a while that he would be willing to come back. And when talks about this show, he said that he would be willing to come back.
He was already like I said, very early in the series, we see Darkwing Duck as a TV show, and that is Jim Cummings' voice that's coming out of Darkwing. Yeah,
but they set up the idea of Jim Starling in that episode, in the Buddy episode that we just talked about.
I like the fact that they called him Jim as a nice nod to the actor.
Well, yeah, and they did the Jim Cummings Starling, to try to do that. But I think that if they tried to do a full series, they would probably try to get Jim Cummings back.
Probably. I mean, it could just be another situation like this one where they're just going to get a whole new cast. Because, like DuckTales, half the cast of Darkwing Duck isn't alive anymore.
I mean, if you need to recast because the original actor has passed on, the fans understand that. I mean, the fans are, I would hope, would not be like, you can't do it because they're gone, Yeah. But I think, or if they just, they're retired or they're just not interested, then yeah, But I think it's a bit different because you're doing, with this show, they were doing like an entirely new continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been a bit weird to be like, well, everybody's coming back except, everybody's gone except for, like everybody's new except for this one actor, you can get away with it with the Darkwing stuff because they're specifically saying this is an actor. Mm-hmm. But when we have a new Darkwing for this continuity, it's a new actor. If you go back and be like, oh, we're just doing new episodes of Darkwing Duck, or we're doing like a, same kind of continuity but slightly updated, then yeah, get Jim Cummings back if he's wanting to do it.
Well, we'll throw it out there. It's like the new Proud Family series. Most of the original cast did come back.
Yeah. But, if you want to be like, oh, this is a completely different universe Darkwing Duck, then maybe you can do it,
Yeah.
the way they do it in here, I kind of like it. I know that some fans were like upset because they're like, oh, why recast it? Jim Cummings is still willing to do it, but they explained it really well. Darkwing Duck is a TV show within this universe. It is played by an actor, and Jim Cummings played that actor and that version of Darkwing Duck. He voiced that within this continuity. Scrooge McDuck apparently owns the studio that owns that
The
IP
rights to
now.
Duckwing, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. And so they're doing a movie, and they get a director, Alistair Borswan, which which is voiced by Edgar Wright, which I loved.
I was hoping we would actually. I honestly didn't think we'd get a chance to talk to about Edgar Wright till we get to like the Ant-Man movies or something. But here we are, Edgar Wright as an actor.
Yeah, I was not expecting to be able to talk about Edgar Wright as an actor. That's incredible. And when I had not seen this episode except for this, talking about this, because I hadn't gotten to this part in the series yet. But when I was like, who's voicing that? And I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, that's actually Edgar Wright.
Get a director to voice a director.
Yeah, I absolutely love Edgar Wright because,
if this was like a few years later, it probably would have been like James Gunn or maybe even Taika Waititi. And it still would have been funny.
Yeah, but I like the idea of, I mean, they're playing off of, Christopher Nolan here.
Yeah, the Darkwing poster is a blatant ripoff of the original Batman Begins poster.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's having him be British is a little funnier, for him being a Christopher Nolan, joke. But his voice acting in this kind of surprised me. I was like, oh, okay.
Edgar Wright could be a voice actor if he wanted to be.
Yeah, I mean, like at least he did it pretty well in this. The thing, I love how bad Scrooge is at giving notes, which is like, the money guy giving all the bad notes is such a funny joke to me. Like his one note just being like, what if the villain had a mustache? Like,
he can twirl and show him how evil he is.
He can twirl the mustache to show how evil he is. Which I love David Tennant's like delivery of like, if only one of them had a mustache, we'd know which one the villain is.
And we have Dewey, who again, he wants to be famous. He wants to be that YouTube celebrity, and now he has a movie studio.
Because Scrooge puts him in charge because he's the target audience. He's like, it needs to appeal to the most childish brain, and Dewey is the most childish brain I know. So
I mean, you're making a superhero movie. Kids are going to see it. Here's the guy you need to listen to.
I love the gritty reboot of Darkwing when they show the trailer, and it's just that pearl necklace falling over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, it's every criticism about the darker Batman movies, the Nolan Batman movies, the Snyder Batman, all rolled into one trailer. Every criticism.
Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. And I mean, the fact that it just kept being that shot of the necklace falling over and over. I was laughing so hard at that. Like I said, this was my first time watching it, and I was absolutely in hysterics. And it was just the voiceover that made no sense about the darkness. It's like
the DW and fire right out of Daredevil.
Yeah, the DW, the fire, and then it's like I'm gonna watch the city burn. It's like, and then they were like, I'm not sure our hero should be burning the city. Is that what the? And they were like, I don't know who I don't know the villain's plan. I don't even know who the villain is. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, such a good.
And the Commissioner Gordon insert here. You can't do that. It's too dangerous. And before he even gets the catchphrase out, they get cut to the title.
Oh yeah, so good, so good.
Darkly, first darkness.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a perfect parody, and I love it so much. And it because of course it's a DC parody.
The company owning Marvel doing a DC parody? Heavens no.
But
although you can kind of almost say there is a comment on Marvel because, hey, here's the kid, appeal to the kid.
But, I mean, I hate to say it, but, like, I know a lot of kids in the Marvel, like, so I would argue that they kind of do.
I mean, they make the toys, they make the cartoons.
Yeah. Although I will say that the DC cartoons way better than the Marvel cartoons.
True.
I mean, if there's anything that the Marvel could take a page from, it's learn how to do the cartoons better.
I mean, we just passed the 30th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series, which still holds up amazingly.
Oh yeah, so good. But Dewey also kind of doesn't know. I mean, don't put the kid in charge either, because he doesn't. The kid
doesn't know what he wants either.
Well, he just wants all of the things.
A musical number, dancing girls.
And I'm not saying those things would be bad. He wants chainsaw jugglers. That'd be cool.
Yep.
But he doesn't know how to make it coherent. He has a lot of ideas, but he doesn't know how to focus them. The problem being is that Starling has been replaced, so he just decides that he's going to take down the entire film.
Can you imagine in another universe where Adam West tried to take down Michael Keaton?
I mean, that would have been a hilarious fight.
I'm Batman. No, I'm Batman.
Neither of them were really doing silly voices at the time, so.
But, I mean, that's kind of where we're coming from here. Like I said, the Darkwing Duck show in universe is pretty much supposed to be the 66 Batman.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm totally with you on that. It's just like, what did you do to me, Christian Bale, with everybody doing silly Batman voices now?
Take a lozenge, Batman.
Yeah, it's like, trust me, if Christopher Reeve can walk into a place as Clark Kent and not get recognized, you don't need a dumb voice for people to not realize you're Bruce Wayne.
But after all of this, Drake and Launchpad kind of become friends themselves because of their mutual love of Darkwing Duck.
And Drake realizes, thanks to Launchpad's help, that he can be a superhero in real life. He can be that thing that kids look up to. He can be the real life
Darkwing Duck.
Darkwing, yeah.
Considering that Scrooge McDuck owns the Darkwing IP, I'm surprised he's allowing Drake to be Darkwing.
You know that Launchpad just had to be like, please, 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 please. And finally Scrooge was like, okay.
I love...
Hush.
Of all the Darkwing merchandise, the funniest one I like is there's this pillow in Drake's trailer that says "Keep calm and get dangerous."
Yeah,
I kind of want
a good
that.
"Keep calm" parody. It's such a great thing.
But yeah, the point is that Drake as a kid found Darkwing Duck as, no matter how many times Darkwing gets beat up, he gets back up and he keeps fighting. And since he was bullied as a kid, Darkwing was kind of the inspiration for him to become a better person.
And even though, in that final battle with Starling, he's hurt, things explode around him and, he gets beat up and everything. He keeps repeating, keep getting back up, keep getting back up. And
Drake, just like in the original series, Drake has an amazingly high tolerance for pain.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impressive. But the thing is that in that final monologue in front of the Megavolt set, Starling ends up getting blowed up real good and falls down into the sewer and turns into Negaduck.
Yeah, his suit gets... We're not sure what happens. All we know is that the explosion happened, his suit starts running, and it turns into the Negaduck suit. And he says, they want a grim and gritty Darkwing? I'm happy to play the part. And they never follow up on that.
Yeah, it would have been really good if they'd have had Jim Cummings back as Negaduck versus,
Chris's Darkwing, yeah.
Chris's Darkwing, yeah, and the Drake Mallard Darkwing, but oh well.
Oh well. But as a reintroduction of Darkwing Duck in this new universe, it's not bad.
Yeah. And you get Edgar Wright, so how can you?
I said, who knew Edgar Wright could be such a good voice actor?
Yeah. And then we get a follow-up in season 3 with a 2-parter called Let's Get Dangerous.
Yep, and this also aired as a 1-hour special, but on Disney Plus they did split it up into 2 episodes. I believe the 1-hour special is still on Disney's YouTube channel. The 1-hour version of the episode is still on the Disney XD YouTube channel. So yeah, if you do want to see the 1-hour version of the episode and not just 2 episodes split, it is on the Disney XD YouTube channel. And one thing I do like for all of the Darkwing episodes is that they changed the color of the DuckTales logo to be in the Darkwing colors.
Yeah, it's a really kind of cool thing.
And they don't use the full intro.
Yeah, it's
just
the thing. They don't use the full intro for this entire series. Just side note, they shortened theme song for the whole series. Very annoying. Yeah.
But at least they have original animation for the intro, unlike some other cartoons these days.
Yeah.
But the point is, they're in St. Canard now. This is the plot of this current Let's Get Dangerous episode. They're in St. Canard. McDuck has a research facility in St. Canard that has been reporting power outages and power influxes, and they're going to check it out. Among their chief scientist, Taurus Bulba.
And we gotta give a shout out to who voices Taurus Bulba, because he's James Monroe Iglehart, I believe is the way you pronounce his name. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. But he was the original genie in the Broadway Aladdin. And
You know what? If you're going to replace Tim Curry, you might as well get another stage actor.
Yeah, but won the Tony for that for his portrayal as Genie there. And I mean, he was, I mean, I've seen, his Tony performance of that, and of course the video of that. Such a great version of the genie, but his voice is just so wonderful, and he does such a good version of Taurus Bulba. If you're a fan of the original Darkwing and of Tim Curry's version, of course, of Taurus Bulba, such a worthy successor to the part.
And like, it starts that's he opens the door very menacingly. He starts having very menacing side dialogue, but it's like, oh no, I'm a good guy. It starts like it wants you to remember the original Taurus Bulba from the series as a villain, but circumvents that, oh, I'm actually a nice guy, and then circumvents the circumvention, but no, I'm actually evil all along.
Yeah. But, Scrooge brings the boys, all three of them this time, and Launchpad to St. Canard, and they meet up with Drake, who's been over in St. Canard actually, being Darkwing.
And we finally get explanation of how Darkwing gets all of his tech from Fenton.
And the interesting thing is that, much like in the original Darkwing, Fenton has kept his secret from Drake.
From most people.
Well, from most people, but because Drake says, "Oh yeah, Fenton actually absolutely hates Gizmo Duck."
And then you kind of see the little from Launchpad and Dewey, like, he doesn't know, does he? No, he doesn't know.
But Fenton has given him an AI named Wanda. And I love it because Wanda is actually voiced by Jamila Jamil of The Good Place and now She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Interestingly, 2 actors from The Good Place in this episode, because the other, we didn't mention it when we talked about him before, but our Bradford Buzzard is portrayed by an actor from The Good Place as well, Mark Evan Jackson. So this is kind of interesting little tidbit.
Interesting reunion.
Absolutely adore the Good Place. So
so we finally get to read. The ultimate culmination of Bradford Buzzard here is Bradford Buzzard is behind it all. He is the secret head of Fowl, who also is working for Scrooge McDuck as a double agent. It kind of comes, I mean, if you've been watching the show up to this point, it's kind of made obvious, but this is the first time that Scrooge and the family the secret is revealed to them. I mean, as the episode goes on, we Taurus unleashes the villains from the Darkwing Duck television show into the real world, the DuckTales real world. As they're going through this, the boys, go through the adventure and they're captured, they escape, and with Bradford. And then goes, hey, doesn't having adventures make you feel alive? And Buzzard's going, it makes me closer to death. You guys are nuts.
Yeah.
All of your adventures are what's wrong with this world. And he goes through the entire series up to this point. It's like, it's your fault that Magic and the Spell attacked St. Canard. It's your fault that the Moon people attacked the Earth. If you guys would just stop having your adventures, there'd be peace, which has been Bradford's entire MO this entire series. that the number one cause of chaos in the entire world is Scrooge McDuck having adventures. And he's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you can see his point.
Now, is it enough that he's decided to create an organization that takes over the world? Your mileage may vary. But in his mind, and we're not going to go into those episodes yet, but the point of the only way to keep the peace is to take over the world. Sure. But he doesn't call himself a villain. And that is the beauty of Bradford Buzzard's character, is that he's doing these villainous things, but he doesn't see himself as the bad guy. Like, he even says to Taurus, we are not supervillains. This is not what we're about. But he surrounds himself with supervillains who all love the idea of being supervillains. But in Bradford's mind, Scrooge is the villain. Scrooge is what's wrong with the world. And it's a great storytelling note there.
Well, honestly, it's kind of why I talk about my love of Marvel so much. It's because the villains, one, tend to have a point, and two, they don't really see themselves as villains. They're not, as Scrooge would demand, the mustache-twirling villains. So I like that DuckTales kind of fits in with that, and fits in with what we talk about with the new Disney style. You know, it's villains with a bit of a depth to them. And, you know, Bradford kind of fits in with that.
I mean, if you want to go into some of the other villains, they all have similar reasons for becoming villains. Is that Scrooge McDuck ruined their lives. Scrooge McDuck going on adventures and not caring about the consequences. Again, the consequences catch up to him with Della. But he going on in his adventures and not caring about the consequences is what creates Flintheart. It's what creates Magica. Is what creates the conflict with the Moon People. Is what creates Bradford. It's all of them. It even causes the conflict with the Beagle Boys, if you want to go in that direction. Like, all of Scrooge's enemies in this series are the direct results of Scrooge's actions.
But honestly, isn't that kind of just billionaires?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that like he goes around and does whatever he wants and gathers all the things, and everybody else is just kind of left to pick up the pieces?
But at least those villains accept the fact that they are doing evil things for evil purposes. It's Bradford that sees himself as the hero.
But I was giving the show props for that, because, like, I mean, Scrooge, you can like him, especially in this version, and he's not necessarily intending to do bad things. And like, even in the first episode, you know, he goes to Atlantis and he brings back a gem that gives a lot of power.
For 50 years, he says. Clean energy.
Clean energy. We never really see the outcome of that. And also, Duckberg keeps getting plagued by all these things that are his fault, you know?
He said a giant dragon flying through downtown, a witch taking over the town, aliens taking over.
whatever that cursed gem is that Glomgold brought back.
Yeah.
Kind of Scrooge's fault.
And like I said, the only real the first real consequence he suffers is Della.
I mean, yeah, even if you want to talk about it on a personal level, you know. But also, like, there's an entire criminal organization, Foul, that's been started kind of because of Scrooge McDuck.
A criminal organization that was created for the sole purpose of stopping Scrooge McDuck from having adventures because of the chaos it causes. And feeling that the only way to stop the chaos in general is to take over the world. So, I mean, Bradford's not entirely wrong, but at some point he does have to accept the fact that he is working with villains. Which he never does.
The thing about this particular episode, though, is I like the ramrod device that is really just a portal to other dimensions.
Yeah.
He makes it seem like it's the replicator from Star Trek, you know? It's like,
create anything.
Oh, you want a haggis? Okay, there, I've created a haggis. I love that that's what Scrooge wants. But then we get, our big entry into the series, which is this is where we get Gosselin.
Yeah, we get Gosselin voiced by Stephanie Beatrice. Most people know her now as Mirabelle Mardi Gras from the Encanto.
Yeah, so, we get the family madrigal here.
With Lin-Manuel Miranda.
with a shout out to Lin-Manuel Miranda here. I mean, he appears later in the episode as we're fighting the supervillains. But yeah, this is a really good portrayal of Gosselin. She's more or less the same character. She's updated a little bit.
They focus more on her relationship with her grandfather. And that is kind of something that they completely drop in the original Darkwing. She is an orphan. Her grandfather was killed by Taurus Bulba. And we kind of forget that as soon as the first two episodes are done, because it's all about calling Drake dad, and we just never mention that again. Granted, it could be a trauma response, but this is also a cartoon in the early 90s where continuity doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, but also he's kind of definitively dead in that series.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, he was sent to another universe because we find out that's what the Ramrod does. It doesn't create matter or replicate matter. It just pulls things out of other universes, including fictional universes, what we think of as fictional universes. The idea is that every thing that you can conceive is somewhere out there in the multiverse,
More multiverse shenanigans involving superheroes. We just can't get enough of that.
I can't personally. I love a good multiverse, but so they discover that the Darkwing TV series in their universe is actually a real reality somewhere else. So Taurus brings in some of the supervillains, Bushroot, Megavolt, Liquidator, Quackerjack.
First off, what better way to take out Darkwing Duck than his actual supervillains from the TV show?
Yeah.
And the look they gave Bushroot in this episode. Like, he is a dead plant.
Yeah, he's like a zombie. It's really cool.
And I think that is a reference to one episode of the series, but the fact that they decided to make that this universe's Bushroot's canon appearance is pretty cool. And he doesn't speak. He just, makes bellowing roars.
The thing is, though, is that, Gosling's grandfather, Dr. Thaddeus Waddlemeyer, is the one who developed the ramrod, and he told him, like, hey, he told Taurus, you can't actually use this. I've discovered if you use it too much, it will break down the barrier between all realities and just kind of suck everything into a single reality, and everything will go kaboom. Normal multiverse stuff. But Taurus didn't want to hear that, because that's kind of what he wanted. We find out that's kind of his plan. He wants to remake all reality into a single reality. And so he sent Thaddeus to a random reality, and the machine doesn't have enough power to bring him back.
Because if they do that, it's, like you said, it's going to just collapse reality into itself.
Yeah, the thing is that since he doesn't know what reality he sent him to, it would take too long to keep turning on the machine and searching realities to find the one guy. In this thing, though, we have the great dilemma that Gosling has to make there at the end of the episode. Most of this is the reveal of Bradford
as the leader of Fowl. Yeah.
As the leader of Fowl to the family, and just kind of Darkwing Duck shenanigans. Let's have a fight scene. We keep getting Fenton / Gizmo Duck popping in every now and then, being like, "Hey guys, is this a good time to talk to you now?" No, okay. So we get a nice little cameo.
A nice reference to the original DuckTales. A sea monster! Eat my ice cream! A sea monster! Eat my ice cream! A sea monster! Eat my ice cream!
Ooh, that must have been some ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh, that is that. As soon as I saw that episode and I heard that, like, I know exactly what episode they're referencing. I know exactly what episode they're trapped in.
Yeah.
Oh.
But the
with the original designs from the original series.
Yeah, they do, and they reference specific episodes by name, because
Darkwing Duck, yeah.
Drake and Launchpad keep referencing specific episodes as part of their battle plans.
Unlike a different movie about a different Disney afternoon show, these are actually referencing episodes that actually happened.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, is that this is where we get our reference to Bonkers, because they ask Wanda to pull up a police search, and Bonkers is the policeman.
Poor Bonkers. You had Jim Cummings.
In.
You could have had Jim Cummings do a couple of lines here.
Yeah. But the main emotional crux of this two-parter is Goslin and her grandfather. We get introduced to Goslin, we find out about the grandfather, and she overhears Drake and Fenton talking about how to get her grandfather back, and Fenton, being the one who understands the science, says there is no way. The ramrod has basically just enough power left. You can either send all the villains back to their universe. We know where they came from. You can set this reality right. Or you can try to find her grandfather. But seeing as we don't know where he is, it will probably implode the multiverse. That's your choice. Set everything right and we're all safe, or try to find him and probably doom the entire universe. Not just our reality, but the multiverse.
And Drake can't accept that.
Drake has fallen too in love with Goslin as his kind of adopted daughter already, that he's like, I cannot let this little girl down. I would risk that outcome to get her grandfather back. And he goes off to try to do the thing, but he's incapacitated by all the villains and everything. Goslin ends up being the one kind of at the control board.
And Drake is saying, find your grandfather.
Yeah, no, you have to find him. And Goslin ends up being the one that makes the hard choice, and she ends up pulling the trigger on the grappling gun or whatever.
She destroys the ramrod.
And she ends up destroying the ramrod and shutting it down. It ends up sucking in the villains from the TV show, sending them back to their original universe, knocks out Taurus Bulba. Reality is saved. Huzzah.
There is a when Goslin is searching the multiverse, there is a reference here that I never thought Disney would even make. And I guarantee you nobody knows this cartoon except probably me and like 5 other people. In 1986, there was a 1-hour TV pilot for a show called Fluffy Dogs. And it never made it to series. And the fact that one of the universes that Goslin searches has 3 of the Fluffy Dogs on it. And when I saw it, like, that is the deepest cut that this series has ever made, and very few people are going to get it.
I just kind of wonder if one of the animators or something worked on the show, or,
Considering that they put all these references to other Disney afternoon cartoons, I wouldn't doubt me that they wanted to go for the deep cut. Like, well, we can't show the gummy bears outside of Shadow. Let's take these characters instead. Like, with all of the deep cuts this show gets with Disney Afternoon, someone really likes rare Disney characters. That's all I can say.
I mean, I'm just going to say that, you want to talk about deep cuts. They brought in the Salego circuit. Okay, Salego is a character from a comic that showed up in the Disney Adventures magazine.
Someone that, again, people who are working on this show must really have a deep love for Disney, and all of the deep cuts this show does.
I mean, that's a hell of a deep cut. Like, you want to talk about, like, that is a like, you were a Disney kid in the 90s to remember Salego. Like, the fact that it's Goslin's choice there, it leaves us with a bit of hope for her at the end of the episode, because Drake, in kind of adopting her or whatever, like, in his kind of, like, I guess you'll live with me little speech at the end, says that, like, well, Launchpad does know an awful lot of super scientists. There is hope that they will figure out a way to find her father, her grandfather, and that you have a feeling that, like, Fenton is already kind of maybe working on it and is bugging Gyro about it, or,
And you know, he kind of takes Goslin in and kind of takes her in as his sidekick.
Yeah.
She never wears a costume, but I would have liked if she had worn like the quiver wing costume or something.
Yeah.
And if they had done their particular version of a spinoff, maybe. And it's kind of sad that we'll never see this creative team doing a full Darkwing show. At least anytime soon.
I mean, if we do get like a reboot Darkwing that has, say, Jim Cummings in the lead or whatever, it would be interesting to have a crossover with this version of the characters, you know?
Multiverse, anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's they've already set up, and, you know, they already had that in the original Darkwing.
Yeah, multiple universes.
You know, that...
That's where Negaduck came from in the original series.
Well, and also, you know, it's the idea of, like, they've already played around with the idea of Darkwing being a TV character, and, you know,
we talked about that in our Darkwing.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that episode of the original Darkwing. So why not it being the other way?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why not be like, well, I was an actor that was going to play Darkwing, and then I just became Darkwing. You know, I was inspired by the Darkwing TV show, and then I became Darkwing, and then, you know. It would be an interesting crossover in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, kind of let's wrap up some early thoughts. I definitely want to revisit this series at some other time and talk about, I mean, we did this as, you know, our friend Tasha's guest request.
She specifically requested the Darkwing episode.
Yeah, she wanted to go through the Darkwing arc here, because she helped us out. We didn't mention this when she was on the show, but when we did our Darkwing episode, she helped us pick out a lot of the episodes because she's a huge Darkwing fan. So shout out to her for that. And then she wanted us to talk about the Darkwing episodes of the new DuckTales series, and also just DuckTales in general.
I would like to just do a straight episode just on Della.
Yeah, I want to revisit and talk about some of the Della storyline, because that's kind of what sets the series apart from the original. But I also just kind of wanted to talk about our opinions of the series in general, because we talked about it a little bit when we did the original DuckTales. We talked a little bit about the reboot, but we hadn't gotten very far into the reboot, either of us. We had seen a few episodes.
Yeah, at that time.
But now that we've seen more, you know, let's just talk about our vibe of the series in general.
Definite improvement over the original. This, to me, is an example of the reboot being better than the original. To me, this is kind of like the quintessential, if you're going to introduce DuckTales to a new viewer, whether they be adult or a child, I wouldn't show them the original series. I would show them this one.
Yeah, this is the opposite of they ruined my childhood. This is definitely they improved my childhood. This is what I wish my childhood had been.
You said it already multiple times, especially when it came to Webby.
Yeah, Webby is so much what I wish I'd have had in my childhood. I wanted Webby to look up to when I was a kid. I'm so glad that kids now have Webby to look up to. And honestly, Huey, Dewey, and Louie to look up to.
Yeah. Because
they're distinct. You can find yourself in, you know, some combination of them, or one of them, or, you know, and it's such a different, you know, all the characters are different. Or you can find yourself in Fenton, who is such a different character than he was before. and an improvement.
Pretty much, with the exception of maybe Donald, every character has been an improvement over their original counterpart.
Honestly, I think even Donald's an improvement because he's not just angry; he's
a caring parent. Yeah,
anxious and caring, and a little bit overprotective, and a little, his anger when it shows up is a reaction to something else. It's not just anger for anger's sake. It's I'm angry because I'm worried, or I'm angry.
My loved ones are in danger.
Yeah, I'm angry because of trauma, or I'm angry because of injustice, or it's a much more nuanced version of Donald than I've ever seen.
Frustration because no one can understand what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, still have the captions on because it's impossible to understand that voice. But
except the handful of times where he's voiced by Don Cheadle.
Yeah, which is a weird thing that happens. But yeah, we never even got into that. But yeah, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But speaking of just voicing things, the one weird thing about this, I don't know if this is an improvement, but it's definitely weird. I am not sure if I am comfortable being vaguely attracted to Scrooge McDuck, but you cannot have Scrooge McDuck voiced by David Tennant and not have some weird things happen.
Or like if it was just a cartoon character voiced by like Tom Hiddleston or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like stop having characters that shouldn't be attractive voiced by really attractive voices. Like it starts getting weird, man. There's certain times it's okay to be attracted to a cartoon character, and certain times it's not. Maybe we should start having some firm lines on that.
Maybe. But yeah, I would love to come back
out of last week where we had like
man,
the weird fish man
episode, and now Scrooge McDuck,
and this one about the Scrooge. How is the Scrooge McDuck thing weirder? I don't know how that turns out.
I don't know.
But it is, and I'm uncomfortable with it. Stop it.
So let's ask the question, but it's probably irrelevant at this point. But does DuckTales 2017 have the magic? Absolutely.
Yes, totally. Have you not been listening to the episode? Yes.
As I said, this is a vast improvement over the original series. While the original series will always have a soft spot in my heart, this is much better. This is the final form, the much improved version. As I said, if I'm going to show DuckTales to someone who had never heard of this show, I'm showing them the 2017 version.
Yeah, and every joke in this just lands so hard. Have I mentioned how funny this is? This is such a funny show.
Yeah, and like the emotional parts get really emotional.
Oh yeah, this show will make you feel things.
This show will make you really, like, here's a duck that's quacking in a voice you can't understand, but will make you feel for what he's saying.
Yeah, some of the things, like, Donald will make you kind of upset with him. Like, you're actually like, you're right, Donald. I am angry about that. You are totally legitimate in your anger.
Scrooge is putting the kids in danger for no reason. And, you
I am also angry about what happened to Della.
And you are just doing what you're doing because you're trying to be, for lack of a better term, a good father. A good father figure.
Yeah.
So it's like even, much improvement over everything in the original series. And I really wish that they were able to go 4 or 5 seasons or something, Only 3 seasons. I feel like there could have been more to be told. But that third season wraps up everything else so nicely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really good show. And it even as an adult, it's a really good show because the plots are really intricate and deep. And you're like,
this is a kid show.
Yeah, why? I don't know why you're making this for kids. This is like, I have to have an entire Wikipedia to understand some of these plots, but good for you.
Yeah. So let's move on to next week. Kiki, next week be Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Arr.
So it be once again time to be sailing with the Pirates of the Caribbean. This time we wrap up the original trilogy by going to World's End. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. That's going to be fun to go back to. We did the first two last couple of years, and it's finally time to wrap up this original trilogy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to revisit that. It's been a while since I've seen it. Not sure I entirely remember how that goes.
Yeah, well, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. So come back next week for Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye. If you want to help the fight for human rights in the U.S., the American Civil Liberties Union works to protect constitutional rights for all Americans. Their website is aclu.org. If you need reproductive services in the U.S. or wish to donate to those who do, go to abortionfunds.org for more info. The battle isn't over until the last person surrenders. The fight continues. Don't let the magic stop here.
Join our conversation online on Facebook at Rewatching the Magic.
Twitter at Rewatch the Magic.
And of course, new episodes every week at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com.
Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.